Hello everyone, welcome to Sunya IAS and welcome to this lecture. Today we are going to talk about a very crucial topic for the Make in India initiative that we have started running, and the initiative which we are now so strongly in favor of, because during COVID-19 we saw what happens if your manufacturing sector is not strong. What did we see? That we were China dependent for most of our essentials, including pharmaceuticals. We were dependent on China for plastic. We are still dependent on China and Taiwan for semiconductors, right? So we have seen how it affects. We have seen how their policies, their domestic policies can have an impact on our economy, how it can lead to inflation, how it can lead to instability, how it can lead to the dissatisfaction of people with the government. So, in this regard, we have come up with the Make in India initiative. And even within that initiative, the production linked incentive scheme. The production linked incentive scheme actually aims at encouraging, motivating production of various commodities. So right now, if I give you an example, recently 14 sectors have been selected wherein specific incentives are being given, and these 14 sectors are being called 14 key sectors, in which the more you produce, the more incentives you are going to get from the government. Some incentives can even be as good as redeeming about 50% of production cost. Redeeming 50% of production cost through subsidies. So, if you are producing something for 100 rupees, you were going to sell it for 110 rupees, है ना, let's say, in a hypothetical world. Now, government is motivating you by financial assistance that they will give you 50 rupees. है ना? They will add on 50 rupees. So, earlier, your profit was just 10 rupees. Let's say no other expenses there. Profit was just 10 rupees. Your profit straight away goes to 60 rupees, which is a huge jump. Now, can the government keep on doing this forever? No. This the production linked incentive is to give an initial push to these sectors. Many of which are also called the sunrise sector. Sunrise sectors. So, for example, if I talk about solar panel manufacturing, solar cell manufacturing, solar panel manufacturing, this is a sector which is very new, right? This is a sector which is very new, but it has a lot of scope. So this is a sunrise sector, not as much, not as explored as, let's say, steel, or let's say iron, or tractors, or these kind of sectors, but going to gain a lot of currency. Fine. Then another sector which is very important is not a sunrise sector as such, but a very important sector is white goods. Now, what are white goods? White goods are electronic goods, which are relatively high value goods, like the air conditioner, like the refrigerator, like the washing machine. These are the white goods. And, we always go for production given by other countries. So, for example, this has Japanese technology, this has German technology. So, we are really interested in buying those products. But why are we not interested in Indian technology? It is very clear that we are not interested in Chinese technology because Chinese products are not durable. That is very clear. So now there is a huge space wherein countries have proven time and again that if they invest more and more in the manufacturing side of things, they will reap the benefits in about a span of 30 to 40 years. Not even I'm saying 50 years. They will reap the benefits in 30 to 40 years. And what are these countries? South Korea, is a very good example of this particular aspect. So there is this car brand called Kia, and Kia cars you would be seeing around the country right now as much as you are seeing Honda cars or Hyundai cars. Matlab, Kia is running so much on the roads that it is just unbelievable that it entered the sector very recently, entered the Indian market very recently. And Kia is a South Korean brand. Kia cars, South Korean brand. So my point is that this is not a sudden overnight jump that suddenly they realize that okay, let's just create cars for India. No, it is the research and development and manufacturing prowess that they developed over the years and decades that has paid them off. So if I talk about this, the Kia cars, why are they running so successfully in India? Is because they are giving very good features in less price. And they understood this about the particular Indian market, that if you create the car very cheap, if you make the car very cheap, let's say if you make a car for 5 lakh rupees today, the 5 lakh rupee car, and if you give the best of the best features to it also people won't buy it, because car is a symbol of prestige, and that is why Nano failed, है ना? So what Kia has done after a lot of market research is that they have reduced the price from its competitors just a little bit. So let's say by 1 lakh rupees or 50,000 rupees, the Kia car of the same segment as a Hyundai or a Honda or these things, or a Tata also for that matter, would be about a lakh cheaper than its contemporaries, with better features, with better looks and all. So my point of giving you this case study is that when you venture into the manufacturing sector, it takes time for the sector to grow. And choosing these 14 sectors, 14 key sectors as the government calls it, is very important at this stage if India wants to fulfill the gap that China is soon going to create. China is not a reliable supply chain partner. That has become very clear. है ना? Countries are trying to create supply chain resilience, and there is a supply chain resilience initiative also of which India is a part, that does not depend on China. है ना? The problem is, let's say in the future, China and Taiwan go for a war, and that can happen anytime. These two produce more than 95% of global semiconductors. And if this happens, we will see that the thing that happened with Russia-Ukraine in terms of wheat, when Russia-Ukraine war was at its peak, it still is very strong, but when Russia-Ukraine war was at its peak, the wheat supplies were badly hit. They are still hit in Europe. India has not felt that impact because India is self-sustainable in wheat. But we are not self-sustainable in semiconductors. So let's say a war breaks out between the two of them. The global semiconductor demand will increase manifold. There will be no other actor to bridge that gap, and there will be massive inflation. Even this mic that I'm using right now, this pen that I'm using right now, this remote that I'm using, this camera, everything is running on semiconductors. Everything. And when you take the semiconductors out of the picture, the entire global economy perishes. Fine. So my point of telling you is that there is a very large vision of this production linked incentive scheme. And there is a reason why this production linked incentive scheme was introduced in March 2020 itself. This was the month when the lockdown was announced. right? This was the month. This was the time when it was very clear that COVID-19 is going to be a very big problem for the country for a foreseeable period of time. This was that time, right? So, kudos to the policymakers who could envision that this needs to be done, that some sectors need to be chosen. We need to encourage manufacturing in those sectors, and we need to make those sectors resilient. Now, when you talk about the manufacturing sector, there are some basic figures that all of us know about. So, for example, it employs merely 11.6% of Indian population, right? It contributes to merely 17% of Indian GDP. Fine. This is the problem. Although even the agricultural sector contributes the same amount in the Indian GDP, but it employs a much larger amount of people. So you see, and our manufacturing is not even that efficient. Not as efficient as the Western European countries, not as efficient as the US, not as efficient as Japan or South Korea. Still, we are able to equate it with just about 12% population working. Compared to this, about 49% of population is employed in agriculture directly or indirectly, creating the same amount of GDP. है ना? So, that is a problem. That is a problem, and that is a hope also. We need to increase the blue collar jobs, and ultimately the goal is not just to give them jobs. The goal is to be self-reliant in these currently the 14 key sectors that the government has very clearly said. So there is food, there is textile, there is white goods, there is semiconductors, there is solar panels, there is pharmaceuticals, there is a lot of things that create the life that we live today. So you see here the importance of production linked incentive scheme. So you understand the concept, right? The concept is that the more you produce, the more incentive you get. You get the incentive on per piece produced. Now, before moving forward, let's get to it whether which part of the exam is it important for. So GS3. In GS3, within the GS3 aspect, the economy section of it, also we talk about the primary, secondary and tertiary sector, and there is this manufacturing sector that we talk about. So production linked incentive will fit into that bill. It is a solution and it is also a step taken by the government. Okay? It is a solution for the ailing manufacturing sector, and it is also a step taken. So the solution has already been implemented, it is in the way of being implemented. Now, production linked incentive, the more you produce, the more you are incentivized. How will this help? It will be less burden on state funds. And why am I saying that there will be less burden on state funds when I've clearly written that it's state incentive being given? According to how much you produce, state will incentivize you, because there is no lump sum that has to be given. Just compare this with freelancing versus full-time employee. Compare this with that. That while employing a full-time employee, the employer has to spend a fixed amount of money every month to sustain that employee, no matter the productivity. है ना? When it comes to freelancing, you pay only that much for which the person has worked. That is freelancing. Similarly, the more you produce, the more you get. But if you don't produce, you don't get anything. So it is not like agricultural subsidies, right? It is not like agricultural subsidies. It is not like MSP that has to be given. It is ensuring result. It is ensuring that result is arrived at, that production is increasing. Okay. And when these sectors, for whichever sectors the subsidy is being given, When these sectors become self-sufficient, when these sectors become self-sufficient, then slowly the incentive and all of it will decline. है ना? There will be some resistance, but slowly the incentive and everything will decline, and the cost which the government has to bear will also decline. So it's a wise strategy. Okay. Then it will also lead to capacity development in terms of infrastructure, because whichever sector you are entering into, let's say, let's talk about the pharmaceutical sector. So if we talk about the pharma sector, we start with producing more and more active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs. है ना? Right now, we are into producing the generic medicines. We are not producing the actual drug which affects our body, which affects our mind, right? That is the problem. We are not producing API. We are China dependent for API. So the moment we start producing API, first we'll produce more, then we will innovate. Then we will innovate. We will go for creation of new drugs, because that happens. है ना? You get new ideas only when, जैसे आप answer writing जब करते हो, तो when you do the answer writing, only then you understand how you can improve that particular answer. You cannot understand by just reading. Okay? So that is there. Then broad-based manufacturing sectors. So manufacturing, जैसे ही हम word use करते हैं, we immediately think of a big factory producing steel, iron, tractors, cars, buses, ये सब कुछ. But manufacturing is even about the smallest of the things. So for example, if I were to give you an example, technical textiles. Technical textiles. What are technical textiles? These are textiles which are not being worn. Like, this is not like the thing that I'm wearing or you are wearing, but these textiles help in scientific research. These textiles help in industrial experiments. These textiles help in labs. है ना? And these textiles we have been importing for a very long period of time. So if we get self-sufficient in these technical textiles, we can provide them to the world as well. And that's why overall manufacturing sector will be broad-based. Fine. The export base will increase, because right now the world is literally hungry for people who can replace China and become a reliable supply partner for these goods, for all goods. So countries like Vietnam, for example, are cashing in on the opportunity. Countries like Bangladesh are catching in terms of textiles. We have to cash in the 14 key sectors at least that have been talked about. And the more you encourage, the more the fruits will be. Then FDI attraction will also be there, because the more government subsidizes your production, your profit margins will increase and foreign capital will come to you. That will also lead to strengthening of your currency eventually. Fine. It is sustainable. It will generate employment. It will lower the project cost. How? Because it will achieve economy of scale. Producing 10 pieces of a particular product is always more expensive than producing 1,000 or 10,000 pieces of the same product, because when you sell those products, when you sell those 10 pieces, you cannot recover the cost that you spent in producing them. But when you sell a 10,000 pieces, you have recovered the cost also, and you have actually made a profit also. That is why economy of scale, and economy of scale will lead to lower project cost overall. Then you might have heard of this particular scheme called one district, one product. One district, one product. Must have heard about it. That is also to give an impetus to the Make in India program. And some of those products are having incentives under the production linked incentive program. Fine. Although the 14 key sectors that I told you about, they're highly technical sectors. Fine, they're highly technical sectors, but there are some sectors like food products. Even food products have production linked initiatives. So if, let's say, there is this particular district who wants to take their food to the global market, the government will help them. Why? When you talk about, let's say, talk about chocolates. When you talk about chocolates, which country comes to your mind? You'll immediately think of Belgian. Belgian chocolates. Do you hear about Belgium any other way around in common parlance? No, you don't. And for countries like these small things, these small specialities have led to sustenance of their economy. With countries like India, the problem is that we have such a wide range of options to improve our economy that we are not able to do micro targeting of sectors. So we have so many variety of dishes that can become a global product. I'll tell you an example. The world famous dish of Golgappa, let's say, which is called by 10,000 names within India itself. And it's called puchka, it's called whatever, so many names. But the thing is, and there was this video wherein the Prime Minister of India was offering it to a Japanese representative and he was very happily eating it. So now my question is that when pasta, which is an Italian dish, has become such a core part of our culture, when momos, which is a Chinese dish, has become such a core part of our culture, why can't this somehow become a part of the global culture? Are you understanding? Right now, the thing is that wherever Indians are, Indians need this dish, Golgappa, in whatever form. If they get it, they go mad. But the thing is, our aim has to be to make our food products global food products. Every ethnicity, every person, every nation knows that this product is amazing. This food product is the representation of India. And that makes a difference. Okay, so production linked incentives. So let's say you want to create Golgappas in such a way that it is easily able to be packaged. Even right now, packaged Golgappas are there. But you know, the transportation, they're very fragile and all those things. So when you sort out all those things and then you start exporting stuff, that is when you create a local impetus. Hai na? So the shopkeeper who is selling the Golgappas in front of your office or in front of house, he suddenly starts getting a lot of more footfall because now you have created a brand value out of it. And that is how all the brands run. Okay. And of course, it will generate employment opportunities, no doubt about it. Now, see, these are the sectors in which the production linked incentive is being given. And when you talk about these sectors, there are a lot of numbers which I'll be providing you. But what I want to tell you is that you don't need to remember these numbers. Remember 2 or maximum 3 of them to make it a point that you understand. However, all these sectors, if you see, can also be asked as a separate question. So for example, let's say aviation. Problems in aviation sector. We have already discussed on that. This can be a separate question. Chemicals, if not electronics, can be a separate question. Food processing is a separate topic of your syllabus. So it can come as a separate question. Medical devices, metals and mining, separate topic of your syllabus. Right? Pharmaceuticals, very much expected that you will get a question on pharmaceuticals because post COVID-19, it has been a tendency of countries to try and become self-sufficient in pharmaceuticals. Renewable energy, telecom, textile apparel and white goods. So Although I am saying that you don't need to remember all the data, but make sure that when you study this topic by topic, you have one subheading of how much assistance the production linked incentive has given these sectors. That is my point. So, for example, in the automobile sector, this particular initiative, the production linked incentive initiative, in the automobile sector alone, and it is a very big thing that I'm going to tell you, it is going to create 7.5 lakh jobs. It is going to create 7.5 lakh jobs by the production linked initiative, because now why is Tesla not on Indian roads yet? Because our prime minister has offered Elon Musk, you come, you produce in India, you at least assemble in India. But if you are giving us a completely assembled car, I'm sorry, but you'll have to pay a very hefty charge on that, very hefty taxation of that on that, because your car is not creating any employment for our country. So make your car create some employment in our country and you can sell your cars in the country. Just imagine how profitable it is for Elon Musk to sell his cars in India, because the number of rich are increasing in India. Hai na? So even if it is for a crore, people will be able to afford it. Even if it is more than crore, people will be able to afford it that way. Fine. Then if we talk about the aviation sector, so drone technology is an upcoming sector in aviation, and in the drone technology it is said that with the production linked initiative there will be a creation of about 10,000 jobs. There will be creation of about 10,000 jobs. Okay. Then chemicals. If we talk about the chemicals, this is something that is not very strong in India that way. But yes, this is an emerging sector. This is a sunrise sector which needs to be pushed forward. Then this electronic system, the IT system, this is very important. See, because the entire world is going for digitalization, right? And you have new technologies, let's say like the blockchain. So in this aspect, no country can shy away from importing more and more digital products, more and more electronic products. So it is said that production linked initiative, production linked incentive, when it completes its whole target, 75% of production that will be there in the electronics system will be exported. That means 75 out of 100 products, or 75 out of 100 rupees are coming from exports. That means exports will boom, because the entire world is looking for reliable partners other than China to make the electronic products. Then we talk about the food processing industry. And when we talk about the food processing industry, it is estimated that about 2.5 lakh jobs will be created by the production linked initiative. And how much contribution it is going to make in the GDP, that of course is a different statistic. But why I want you to know is, I want you to understand the gravity of it, is because just imagine 2.5 lakh unemployed people getting employment through just one sector because of production linked incentive. Because as a business owner, you think that your profits have increased, so you will be able to spend more on your staff. You'll be able to spend more on your staff, and as a result, of course, when we process our food, we'll be able to export also. So that's of course not a bad deal at all. Then in the medical devices domain, during COVID-19 we saw that we are not just restricted to the PPE kits or the masks or the sanitizers. We can even manufacture the ventilators. है ना? We have that capacity. So what is needed is to augment that capacity, and for that more than 800 crores have been invested in this sector in the production linked incentive scheme, and that will definitely create a positive impact. Then when you talk about metals and mining, metals and mining are a basic industry. Okay, metals and mining is not creating a final product, but they are so strong as the base in itself because they give base to all the other industries. If you see all the industries over here, automobiles, aviation, let's say chemicals also, electronics, food processing, none of the industries can survive without the metals and mining. And that's why the people who are willing to go into this sector to subsidize their cost of production according to per unit, 35,000 crore rupees have been invested in the mining sector itself. That means government has allocated 35,000 crore rupees over the years to subsidize the mining and metal sector. It is a huge, huge amount of money. Fine. Then pharmaceutical sectors. Pharmaceutical sector is a very specialized sector, but if we are already called the pharmacy of the world because we give cheap medicines, we give affordable medicines to the world. Just imagine a situation wherein we are able to give the branded medicines also, a variety of medicines also, and we are not just creating the base, we are also creating the active pharmaceutical ingredient, right? The APIs. So the pharmaceutical industry will be creating more than 12,000 jobs because it's a specialized industry. So you cannot compare it with the food processing industry wherein about 2.5 lakh jobs will be created. But the production linked incentive, the impact that it will have on the pharmaceutical industry will be very, very wide ranging and very wide impact. Then when we talk about the renewable energy includes all the aspects, the solar aspect, the wind panels, everything. So it is said that once the benefits of renewable energy production linked incentive will be completed, the renewable energy products produced, more than 60% of it will be exported. More than 60% of it will be exported. That means again a very, very big push to the exporting sector. The next sector is telecom sector. Now you understand that telecom sector needs wires, cables, towers, handsets, everything. And once the production linked incentive solidifies and it starts bearing the fruit, it is estimated that about 3,000 crore of investment would flow in. 3,000 crore of investment would flow in the telecom sector post the production linked incentive scheme. Then if we talk about the textile and apparel, so once the government has given the push for manufacturing to this sector, it will lead to about 19,000 crore in fresh investment. These are such big numbers that it is difficult to comprehend them. But break it down among the amount of population that we have, and it is a result of collective effort, economy of scale, as I told you. Then you talk about the white goods, like I told you, the air conditioners, the refrigerators, the washing machines, and those things, the appliances, etc. So in the white goods, the government is planning to invest more than 7,000 crore. The government is planning to invest over a period of 5 years to make it cheaper and more reasonable for the producers to produce these white goods. And once that happens, there might come a time, and there will come a time, that the countries of Africa, the countries of Latin America, the countries of Southeast Asia, for instance, they are looking for Indian technology appliances. Why not? Right now, we can't fathom such a situation, but why can't we fathom such a situation? This will come. So once we are done with the drill of manufacturing, learnt the art of manufacturing and achieving the economies of scale, eventually down the line, it will lead to research and development in the sectors also. So all the data that I told you, you will get it. That is there in the book, that is there in the notes. So don't worry about the data. However, what I want to tell you is that in no way should you dedicate your entire answer to this section. Let's say a question, a 15 marker comes on production linked incentive. You should not dedicate more than 2 to 3 examples to prove your point, because your main aspects are not this. Your main aspects are the reason behind production linked incentive, the advantages, the issues, and the way forward. Fine. So let's see the issues, because such a grand vision, there ought to be some issues for sure. And it was released in 2020. India clearly hasn't become the topmost manufacturing, although we are doing really good in food, but overall the topmost manufacturing destination, we still haven't reached there. So there are financial limitations, and more than financial limitations, there are fiscal limitations. The government's finances are limited, and government cannot blindly keep on spending taxpayers' money on the capitalists. Government cannot ultimately, who are the producers? Who are the people who are creating such goods? Who are the people who are forming companies? They are the capitalists. So there cannot be any cross subsidization that way, that the revenue being earned by the agriculture and let's say the service sector is being spent entirely on this production linked incentive scheme. So there ought to be financial fiscal limitations. Then the approach is very obsolete. Why do I call it an obsolete approach? Because it is basically going on a piece rate method. You know, when you have small organizations with 2, 3 employees, 5 employees, let's say it's a boutique or something. So the more number of clothes you produce, the more you get paid. That is piece rate. So that does not promote any innovation. That does not promote any motivation to do better. It just promotes the motivation to actually keep on producing more and more. So there is no ground level improvement that is happening, and that's the problem. Then China sees the PLI scheme as a threat overall. So China has one tool, that is the cheap manufacturing and the tool of dumping. So when we talk about dumping, we need to understand that in China it is said every house's backyard has a small manufacturing facility. Every house's backyard has a small factory. They might be manufacturing anything. They might be manufacturing toys. They might be manufacturing kitchenware, anything. But China gets it produced through everyone, and that's why it is so cheap, and that is why production linked incentive scheme is being perceived by China as a threat. Then raising of import duties. Once the production linked incentive scheme is fully functional in all the sectors, right now it is restricted to 14 sectors, but once it is fully functional to all the sectors, other countries, knowing that India has this production linked incentive, and the government is supporting these companies, will keep on adding more and more import duties. Like we have imposed an import duty on Tesla, right? I just told you about it. We have not allowed Tesla to enter our market. That is an import duty that we have put. So because our producers will have such great advantage over other countries' producers, the countries will try to create a barrier, and that is very normal. That is bound to happen. Every country will see its own national interest. Then WTO might classify these subsidies in the amber box, and that will be a big problem. WTO being not very convinced for even the food subsidy, for even the MSP regime that we give. How can we expect the WTO to be okay with these industrial subsidies which we are giving to increase production? So WTO will come up with a problem definitely, and it will be China which will take this issue to WTO for sure. And overall, market share of domestic companies might decrease, because when foreign companies with already established production facilities come to India to take advantage of the production linked incentive initiative, they will corner the smaller domestic companies and the purpose will be defeated. So something on the lines of restricting the benefits of these incentives has to be done to the MSMEs, that the benefits of these initiatives will be restricted to the MSMEs. That can be done. Now let's talk about the way forward. The scheme is great, no doubt about it. The scheme has to be retained, and it is very important that the scheme has a sunset clause also, because if it gains the characteristic of MSP that MSP has in agriculture right now, it will become a curse for us in the future, because the countries will not, the companies will not let the government reduce these subsidies, and the fiscal burden will keep on rising. That will be a big problem, right? So it has to have a sunset clause. That is one. Then the production linked incentive should not be limited to the manufacturing sector. If someone has created a software which has the capacity to capture global markets, and software development, let me tell you, is not a cheap business. It's not something that can be done with very less amount of money. So why not to incentivize the person who is actually innovating in the sector which is rising exponentially? So do we want to regress back in time, or do we want to do we want to actually progress with time? We want to progress with time. So we have identified 14 key sectors in the manufacturing domain. We need to identify sectors in the tertiary sector as well, the services sector as well, so that we gain the benefits of economy of scale and we motivate production. Then focus on global supply chain. So this particular initiative should not be restricted as a domestic initiative, so to say. It should have a larger vision that India has to have a certain percentage of global exports by this particular year through the production linked incentive. So we have to become an inextricable part of global supply chain. Right now, China is an inextricable part of the global supply chain, and that is why we are all talking in terms of China, right? So that needs to be done. Then supply chain co-location we need to develop. What is this? Now, co-location means, and this has come in UPSC mains earlier as well, that why are the iron and steel industries not being developed near the sources of our mineral wealth, our petroleum sources. अब सिंपल सी बात यह है कि when we locate industries which are related to each other together, the transportation time decreases, the transportation cost decreases, and as a result, the overall cost of production decreases. So we have to focus on supply chain co-location in the domestic and the international sphere as well. Let's say in the domestic sphere, I'll give you an example. Mega food parks. Now, what are mega food parks? Mega food parks under PM Sampada Yojana are aiming at creating such parks wherein the farmer can bring their products. The products are being processed over in the facility itself. From the facility, the final consumer can also purchase the product, the retailer can also purchase the product, the wholesaler can also purchase, and the exporter can also purchase. So that means that there is one hub that is being created, which is reducing the time of transportation, which is reducing the cost of transportation, right? Which is very important. So something on these lines can be done. And what is there in the international domain to do over here? See, let's take the example of jute industry. When we talk about jute industry, the jute mills are primarily in India. The jute mills are primarily in India, but the jute fields are in Bangladesh. Fine. So we have, because of the unrealistic partition and everything, we have this situation wherein we can create the biggest jute hub of the world by collaborating well with Bangladesh, right? Just like Russia and Ukraine did for wheat, we can use this for jute by collaborating with Bangladesh suitably. Similarly, whichever countries are in our proximity and in whichever way we can take advantage of their location and give them the advantage, mutual advantage can be created, we should be aiming to do that. Then overall reduction in cost. So the purpose of production linked incentive scheme should not be to keep on subsidizing and continue like that. The purpose has to be to reduce the cost overall. So it has to bring an efficiency in production. And that will only happen when there is a sunset clause. When the companies know, when the sectors know, and if the sectors know that this is an unlimited, just abhi kya hai, it's a 5-year plan sort of. The investments are being planned, have been promised for 5 years. So this in itself makes it a sunset clause only, because whether these will be renewed the next time or not depends on the government. ठीक है? So here the focus should be on increasing efficiency, not just on blind replication of effort. Then China issue has to be resolved. We have to collaborate with China also to take technology transfers from them. What is technology transfers? On the production methods they employ. How are they able to produce it so cheaply? So technology transfer in that way. We have to make our sectors competitive. We have to reduce the logistic cost, which is currently about 14% of GDP. The national logistic policy aims it at 8% of GDP. So that we have to do. India should come up as a design hub. India should come up as an innovation hub, not just as a manufacturing hub. So if someone, let's say, is creating, if a company is creating air conditioners, and now the global regime has stopped the production of chlorofluorocarbons. It has banned the production of chlorofluorocarbons. Kal ko the current coolings, if they are also banned, and the air conditioner manufacturers are in a flux in what to do now, regarding what to do. So they should be very clear on the fact that India has the answers. Indian producers have the answers on what to do, how to create our air conditioners now. So we have to be a design hub, we have to be an innovation hub, not just a production hub. And this is very important that now, as more and more jobs will be created, the labor codes have to be properly implemented. They have been released, but they have not been properly implemented as yet. Fine, the rules have to be implemented. So that is there. So that is all for production linked incentive scheme. Let me remind you that this topic can be asked in a separate 15 marker, separate 10 marker as well. So you know in which sectors the production linked incentives are being given, why are they being given, and what benefits they are going to have, and what are the challenges. Now, please understand that whenever you write a question of this regard, you will not get a question directly. So for example, you will get a question on these lines, that why is the manufacturing sector not able to arrest jobless growth? Fine. Or why is the manufacturing sector not able to achieve an equitable and sustainable development? ठीक है, इस तरीके के सवाल, there will be multifaceted questions. So if you are using production linked incentive there, you need to use it as a proper way forward. You need to write it as a step that has been taken by the government to increase more jobs. Similarly, another question can be, why is the manufacturing sector not able to push for exports? What has government done in this regard? So you write that government has launched a production linked incentive scheme for 14 key sectors in the manufacturing sector. Okay? This is how you use this particular piece of information, and always follow this mantra that whenever you read something, at the end of it, you should be able to know where you will place it in the examination. है ना? Whether it will help you in prelims, or it will help you in mains, or it will help you in interview. It should help you somewhere, because if you apply this rule, you will stop the habit of leisure reading, right? 2024 is very near. This is not the time for leisure reading. Hence, I'm telling you to do this drill, that always ask yourself that if I have read this, where can I use this? What kind of question can come? Where can I use this? Which paper? And how exactly will I use this? Okay. So that's all for today's lecture. I hope you derived some value out of it. Thank you for watching.